Level 1. Negative balance. Your account is negative. It doesn't matter by how much. The bank doesn't think in degrees. It doesn't see a struggling person who miscalculated by $4. It sees a flag. And the flag triggers one response: extract. The overdraft fee arrives fast, $35, sometimes within the same hour. If 3 small charges land while your balance is underwater, that's $105 in fees, on top of a deficit you couldn't cover in the first place. The bank just made money off the fact that you had none. Think about that for a second. The only reason the fee exists is because you couldn't afford what you bought, and the fee's response to that situation is to make you afford even less. You go to the gas station, the card declines. You try again, still declined. There are people behind you. Your brain is running calculations you can't finish fast enough. Did the transfer go through? Did the deposit clear? Is there anything left? The answer is no, and everyone is watching. That moment, that specific, silent, humiliating moment, that is what financial stress actually feels like. Not a number on a screen. That moment at the register where the machine says no, and the world keeps moving around you. The bank calls this a service, overdraft protection. What it protects, specifically, is the bank's revenue. What you receive in exchange for $35 is the privilege of not being turned away in public. Banks collected over $7 billion in overdraft fees in a single year. The same people, charged over and over for the crime of being poor in a system that invoices for it. You are not a customer here. You are a fee event waiting to happen. Level 2. Low balance. You've climbed out. The account is positive. $200, maybe $400. Then rent drops and you start the climb over. You are no longer overdrawn. You are something slightly better than overdrawn, which in the bank's internal system puts you in the category of accounts they service without particularly caring about. The monthly maintenance fee hits automatically, $12 or $15, because your average daily balance didn't meet the minimum. The minimum is usually $1,500, which means if you had $1,500 sitting untouched, the fee disappears, but you don't, so you pay a monthly fee for the account that is supposed to be holding your money. Your savings earns 0.01% annually. Meanwhile, the bank lends your deposits out at 7 to 24%. The spread between those two numbers is how banking works. At this level, you're simply not large enough for them to care. You try to get a credit card, they approve you for a secured card, which means you deposit your own money as collateral so the bank can lend it back to you and charge you interest for the convenience. This is legal, this is normal, this is how credit is built from the bottom. The service here is not cruel, it is indifferent, which is its own kind of cold. The teller is polite, the app works. When you call support, you wait on hold. Eventually you reach someone reading from a script. There is no relationship, there is a transaction. You are a small number in a system built to pay close attention to large ones. Level 3. Stable income. Something shifts. The job gets better, or a better job comes. Direct deposit hits every 2 weeks. $3,200 a month. Consistent, reliable. The bank doesn't call to congratulate you. It doesn't send a letter. What it does is update your profile, algorithmically, invisibly. You were irregular and low. Now you are consistent and moderate. And consistent and moderate unlocks things. Real credit card offers start arriving. Not secured, not collateralized. Actual credit cards with $2,000 or $3,500 limits. The interest rate is still high, 22 to 26%, because your history is thin. But the door is open now. 6 months ago, they had nothing for you. Now the app is showing you banners. The mail is filling with envelopes. They didn't change. Your income pattern changed. You are now a viable revenue source, and viable revenue sources get pitched. The monthly fees are gone. Your direct deposit qualifies you for a waiver, a small thing that feels larger than it is, because you paid those fees long enough that their absence registers like something being lifted off your chest. You apply for a $5,000 loan, car repair, approved in 48 hours. Rate is 11%. Not great, but it works. For the first time, the bank functioned the way banks are supposed to function. That is not a victory. It is the bare minimum. But if you've lived in levels 1 and 2 long enough, the bare minimum feels like a gift. You are a customer now, recognized, serviceable, worth keeping, not because they like you, but because you are generating revenue. You matter the way a recurring revenue line item matters. Functional, replaceable, retained until you're not. Level 4. Growing savings. You've been consistent, not lucky, not exceptional, consistent. And it has accumulated. Savings, $18,000. Investments, $22,000. The credit card gets paid in full every month. The bank extended you a 24% rate to profit from it. You declined to let them. Credit limit increases start happening without you asking. You log in and the limit has moved from 4,000 to 9,500, then to 14,000. The bank is extending rope to someone whose history shows they don't need it. When you buy a car this time, the loan rate is 6.8% instead of 11. Not because the relationship has warmed, because your credit score and asset profile shifted the risk calculation. The price of money is lower for you now. This is where compounding starts working in your favor. Not just in investments, but in the cost of everything. Better rates mean you pay less for the same things. Paying less means more capital stays in your hands. More capital accumulates faster. The system begins to tilt, slowly, quietly, toward you. You are valuable to the institution now. Not precious, not a priority. Valuable in the sense that they would prefer to keep you. If you walked into a branch and said you were thinking about leaving, someone would make an offer. That is a different conversation from the automated silence of level 2. It is not intimacy, it is the first appearance of leverage. And leverage, once you recognize it, changes how you move. Level 5. High savings and assets. Combined assets above $150,000. You are not wealthy by the standard of what comes next, but you are in the top tier of what most retail banks see daily. And the bank knows it. The phone line is different now. Priority queue, shorter hold times. The person who answers has actual authority to waive fees, approve exceptions, and resolve problems in the same call. No escalations, no callbacks, no scripts. A dedicated banker may appear. Not at every institution, but at the better ones, a name materializes. Someone who emails directly, someone who calls to check in. It feels like a relationship because it functions like one. They are attentive because their performance metrics include your retention. Pre-approved products start arriving. Mortgage pre-qualification, premium credit cards with real rewards, investment products you weren't eligible for before. The bank is no longer managing your present balance. It is competing for your future wealth. You are a preferred client, named in the system, flagged as worth protecting. The difference between this and level 2 is not a matter of degree. It is a different operating mode. The same institution, running different protocols on the same accounts, sorted by value. Level 6. High net worth. Somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million in investable assets, the bank stops being a place you visit and becomes a service that moves toward you. Wealth management is introduced, investment advisory, tax coordination, estate guidance, bundled into a single relationship. Some advisors are exceptional, some are expensive salespeople in good suits. The difference becomes clear over time, and that clarity costs money while it's forming. The texture of conversations changes. You are no longer being sold products. You are being consulted. Someone is asking about your goals, your timeline, your family, your risk tolerance. The bank is constructing a full picture of your financial life, not because it cares about your goals, but because a full picture reveals more surface area across which to offer products and capture revenue. The motivation is commercial, the experience is personalized. Both are true at the same time. Loan approvals move faster, paperwork is lighter, rates are better. When something goes wrong, it is resolved in the same conversation, by a person with actual authority. No callbacks, no escalations. You are no longer a customer, you are an asset. A customer is someone you serve. An asset is something you protect. The category you're in now has different rules. Level 7. Very high net worth. Above $5 million. The bank begins offering things that don't appear anywhere public. Not on the website, not on any rate board. products that exist only for clients with accredited investor status, minimum commitments, or relationship histories that most people never build. The mortgage rate you receive is not slightly better than what a level 3 customer gets, it is meaningfully better, by enough over the life of a loan to represent tens of thousands of dollars in difference. Your advisor is no longer a generalist. You have a team, one handling investments, one handling tax strategy, one handling estate and trust. They coordinate. They meet with you quarterly in a room that looks nothing like where level 2 customers wait. The chairs are different. The conversation has different stakes. The rules of retail banking apply differently to you, not because the law changed, because the bank's internal policies contain discretion, and that discretion is exercised in favor of accounts that generate significant revenue. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. You are just, for the first time, on the side of it that the design was built to protect. Level 8. Ultra wealthy. Private banking is not wealth management with a better name. The difference between the two is the same as the difference between a first-class seat and a chartered flight. Both get you there. The experience is not comparable. At this level, you do not have a banker. You have a private banker. This person manages fewer than 20 relationships. Their entire professional existence is organized around those relationships. They know your children's names. They know what you are building. They know what you are trying to protect, and they have direct access to the decision makers inside the institution, the people who can construct arrangements that no standard product menu would ever contain. The deals here are bespoke. The interest rate on a loan is not published, it is negotiated. Documentation that would take a retail customer 2 weeks to complete is handled internally in 48 hours, because the people processing it know whose account it is. The rules become flexible. Banks do not break laws for wealthy clients. What they do is exercise every legal degree of discretion available under their policies, fully, consistently, and without being asked, in favor of clients whose relationships cannot be lost without consequence. Fees that technically apply are waived before you notice them. Exceptions that require manager approval are approved before the manager is formally consulted. The system that was automated and indifferent at level 1 is now human, attentive, and oriented toward yes. You are not a client at this level. You are a relationship, a named relationship, a line item in someone's annual performance review. Losing you would affect careers. Keeping you is a professional priority. That is not service, that is power. And the distance between that and a card declining at a gas station is not measured in dollars. It is measured in which side of the system you were born into, which side you were able to reach, and what you were willing to understand about how the game is actually played. The system is not neutral. It never was. The question is only whether you're using that to your advantage or funding someone else's.